Welcome to Walk About the Galaxy, the stimulating astronomy podcast where the science is universal, the opinions are personal, and the guests are out of this world. We are Strange, Charm, and Top the Astroquarks, also known as Josh Caldwell,
Addie Dove,
and Jim Cooney.
Coming to you from physically but not socially distanced locations near the University of Central Florida. Remember to check out our website to see how to get our snazzy shirts and subscribe to us on all platforms, including YouTube, where you can catch our first and soon-to-be Grammy-winning music video, the Astroquark song. Today, we're delighted to have Heather Archuletta, a NASA Pillownaut, coiner of the term, R2-D2 Wrangler, and fellow Supreme Trekkie, joining us from San Francisco. Hello, Heather, and welcome to Walk About the Galaxy.
Hi. Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. It's great.
Yeah. Great to meet you, and thank you for joining us. Heather, as you may know, we start our episodes with stupid questions that I make up to stump Jim and Addie. And so I've got one for you, but I'll give Jim and Addie theirs first so you can see how these go.
Oh, okay.
Jim, your stumper, today, our stumpers today, by the way, are completely unrelated. Sometimes they have a theme. There's no theme today. So our stumpers today.
Good preview for the year.
Yes, completely. Random unpredictable events. Jim, quark or squark?
Quark or squark?
Quark or squark?
This I don't think will stump me. I have a clear choice. It's quark.
Squark. I would have put money on that.
Yeah.
What is squark?
What's a squark? Is, well, so first of all, before I tell you what a squark is, I will say it is acceptable in Scrabble, which is beautiful. So if you have quark on the board, you can put an S in front. Excellent. And there you go.
Or at the end.
Or at the end. I know, it's beautiful.
Well, that one, I knew you could put the S at the end, but I didn't know squark.
Put it at the beginning as well. What a squark is, for those uninitiated, is it's the theoretical or hypothetical supersymmetric partner for a quark. It's called a squark. You just put like an S in front of whatever your particle is. For an electron, it'd be a selectron, which, by the way, is not acceptable in Scrabble. Only the squark is stupid. It's stupid. But anyway.
That is stupid.
That's weird.
But supersymmetry, I think in an upcoming episode, maybe next week, the week after, we're going to talk a little bit about supersymmetry, but it's slowly losing favor. I have been, for the last 5, 6, 7 years, been saying I don't think supersymmetry is right, for good reason.
And now they're listening to you?
And just now they're listening to me. So quarks for sure are real. We are astroquarks. We're not astrosquarks. So
that would be a mouthful.
Not most of the time, at least.
And so the squark, you put the S in front, is the partner of in some strange realm.
It's some weird thing. Like for every kind of particle, like for the top astroquark, which is what I am, there would be a top top squark, which is.
Can it be a stop squark?
No, I don't think so. Top squark. It's just some random thing. It has a different quantum mechanical spin, whatever the heck that means, and all this. It's some slightly different characteristics, but it's very related to the other one. And for every particle, there's supposed to be another one. And turns out we haven't found any of them, and we probably should have by now, which means they probably don't exist.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Well, Addie, your stumper, remember, completely unrelated.
Great.
It's not supersymmetry, although there is a certain symmetry to it. Dusty plasma. Or crusty pizza?
That is really tough, because those two are.
It's an interesting stumper because I like them in different areas of my life. For instance, I would not eat a dusty plasma necessarily, but I do like a good crust on a pizza. I'm gonna go with dusty plasma.
Okay. Sometimes they call that like a fourth phase of matter when they've made these sort of crystallized things with dust.
Yeah. Well, plasma is the fourth state of matter in itself.
Well,
right?
but they put
ionized gas.
Yeah.
They've
done some cool experiments where they've gotten sort of like crystal forms of dusty plasmas on space station and stuff.
Yeah. So dusty plasma is when you have dust and plasma. And the dust
acts like really super massive ions in the plasma.
Yeah. Super cool.
So Heather, you've got the low bar has been set on for stumpers.
Okay.
And so as I mentioned in the introduction, amongst many of your activities, you have listed R2D2 Wrangler, which I want to hear about. And so your stumper is R2D2 or Grogu.
R2D2 or Grogu. Oh, it's like I'm being asked to choose between my children.
It's like Sophie's
So
choice.
difficult.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, my partner actually built the R2. So I sort of jokingly think of him as my stepson. Had you asked me like a year ago, because we take R2 to like, museums and the Galactic Outpost at the State Fair and Maker Fair and Comic-Con and everything. All that got wiped off the calendar this year, including Star Wars Celebration. So to, heal ourselves, we've been watching The Mandalorian. So like right now, I'd have to say Grogu. That's
Okay.
That's our
The timely
thing.
choice.
And so you have I've seen the pictures online, you've got a life-sized R2D2.
Full-size movie worthy R2D2. Yeah.
To borrow a phrase from Data on Next Gen, is he fully functional?
He is fully functional. He goes backward, forward, and circle. He screams, he beeps, he is happy and sad, and yeah, it's quite a thing. We've got a YouTube channel. If you want to, I can send you that. And I tweet from the Bay Area Droid Builders account as well.
Are
That's
you
awesome.
the one who brought R2 to AGU one year?
Yes, that would not me personally,
Unit?
but that was the same R2.
That was your R2? I have a picture with
I
your
have a picture with
R2D2
that
then.
one.
Oh, how
Yay.
funny.
Small
That's
world.
amazing. I happened to
bummer.
be there.
I wish I powered it up and put it in the background, but the other baby is behind me today.
Yeah.
I noticed in your, obviously this is mostly a podcast that people are listening to, but in the video that we have here, you have a Grogu in the background. By the way, I'm not going to call it Grogu. I'm calling it Baby Yoda.
I know. I do that too.
I'm having a hard time completing this podcast because I love him.
Oh yeah. This one talks too. Yeah. I can move it. I can move it.
Oh my gosh. Jim's distracted now for the whole podcast.
I'm distracted. I cannot.
Oh no.
Oh
We
my
just-
god, that's amazing.
We just, for our listeners, we've just lost Jim for the show because Grogu is on Heather's screen is being adorable.
It is death. I love that noise. It's death by cuteness. Yeah.
Death
Oh
by
my god, that's
cuteness.
so amazing.
Well, today we'll talk about spending months in bed to help space exploration, a shorter day for the Earth, and nasty space weather at our stellar next-door neighbor. But first, this episode of Walkabout the Galaxy is brought to you by Moment of Inertia. Take a deep breath, slowly exhale, repeat. Ah. Let awareness of your surroundings settle over you like cherry blossoms drifting to the earth on a beautiful spring day. Feel the contentment born from an absence of torque and finding rotational equilibrium with your environment. This is your moment, not your moment of Zen, which is fleeting and ephemeral, but your moment of inertia. Your moment of inertia is with you always and everywhere on your walk about the galaxy. If you need more, you can always stretch your limbs wide. When you need to slow down the crazy whirlwind of life, turn to Moment of Inertia. Moment of Inertia. Challenge everything.
Oh, that was nice. I did yoga right before this, so I feel like I should have that sort of at the end of my yoga class.
They should maybe get into sponsoring some yoga stuff too.
Yeah.
Challenge
yeah.
everything. Any thoughts?
Challenge everything.
Subaru.
Subaru.
Subaru has something like
I
some
don't know.
love thing.
Challenge everything could be anything.
Challenge everything.
The last thing that could be anything was a phone store, right? Was some kind of cell phone thing.
Yeah. I don't know.
Do you have any thoughts, Heather, on what real
Motorola.
product might have used the tagline "Challenge everything"?
Challenge everything. It sounds maybe like kind of a tech thing or a software thing. I
Oh,
feel like I've seen it on a billboard somewhere.
it is a tech thing or a software
Is
thing.
it? Okay, yeah. It
Is
sounds like
IBM?
some Apple or
Yeah.
Google or something like that.
It's electronic arts,
Mm.
so video games.
Okay.
There you go.
Yay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Mm.
Okay.
Got it.
Mhm.
That's a good local sponsor.
Mhm.
This is our first episode of 2021.
Year of the
Yeah.
Astro Quark.
That's right.
It's the
year of the
third
Astro
annual year of the AstroQuark, I
That's
believe.
right.
Yeah.
Part 3.
Already we have had a launch from down the road here in Central Florida. the first of what will certainly be many this year.
SpaceX, but not a Starlink.
It was not a Starlink launch, but those are coming.
Yeah.
So you may, our dear listeners, if you're hearing this before January 31st of 2021, tweet to us your prediction for the number of orbital launches that will occur this year for a chance to win some free Walkabout swag. Maybe it'll be a shirt. Maybe it'll be a Tesla with a Walkabout Galaxy emblem on it. It could be either of those two things, but probably only one.
Probably not the Tesla. Okay.
Maybe not.
Maybe.
We could send you a sticker at least
Yes.
To put on your
to
pre-existing.
put on your Tesla.
Right. Tesla with sticker for Walkabout the Galaxy, car not included.
Asterisk. Car not included.
Yeah.
The Starship test flight program continues. So the serial number 8 test flight which was awesome a month or so ago, where it did this belly flop and then pivot and came down for a powered landing just a little bit fast and blew
An
up.
overpowered landing.
Serial number 9 is on the pad in Boca Chica, Texas, where SpaceX does their flights, and they've done first hot fire test before test flight of that vehicle. Any other space news that you're thinking of, Addie? Oh, maybe a launch next week.
I was to say maybe something upcoming very soon, probably before we record the next time.
Yeah, miraculously, we are taping this episode in that rare period of time after Virgin Orbit has publicly announced a launch date that has not yet occurred, which is a fairly narrow window that is carrying Addie's and my small
Hopes and
satellite
dreams.
Q-Pace, which we have mentioned before. So Q-Pace is on the Launcher 1 rocket, which is scheduled for its second flight. It's a demo flight from an it's an air-launched rocket, and that is scheduled for January 13th. At least that's been announced by Virgin Orbit, I think earlier today that was announced.
Launching from?
It is launching from an airplane that is taking off from Mojave and then flying out over the Pacific off the coast of California.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
So we're very excited, years in the making, to see Q-Pace get into orbit. And
It can join Surfsat.
That's right. And we will be doing experiments to try to better understand the early stages of planet formation with that. So we'll keep you posted on how that goes. Nerd news, we talked about Grogu and the Mandalorian, and I guess the big sort of nerdy movie over the Christmas break was Wonder Woman 84.
It did release
Yeah, it did.
over Christmas.
Mhm.
Rant
We watched
alert.
it.
Thoughts?
Yep.
Oh, man.
There it is. Yeah.
Oh,
Haven't
man.
seen anybody raving about this one yet.
No, only ranting. Cue Jim.
Oh.
Mhm.
No, but I mean, the first Wonder Woman, not the first Wonder Woman, the first Wonder Woman movie from a couple of years ago was great. Fantastic movie, awesome. This
I had
one,
a few small issues with that one, but it was like, in
sure,
the
I
grand
mean,
scheme of
there's
things,
well,
it's
yeah,
a great
you're never
movie.
gonna- Yeah.
Yeah.
Overall, it was a wonderful movie. I enjoyed the hell out of it. This one sucked, and
It really did.
it really did.
Is that PG-13? That's PG-13.
Suck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sucked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could say worse things, but I won't because it is PG-13 here.
It just wasn't good.
Mhm.
No, and there were a lot of things, and I just the thing that pisses me off the most is
Jim, remember that one of your goals that you've mentioned to me was to have Gal Gadot on the show.
Oh yeah. So maybe I should come.
Bear
I
that in
actually did
mind.
think that Gal Gadot. It's Gal Gadot, right? Am I crazy?
Yeah,
It's
Godot.
Gadot. She
Gadot.
pronounces it Gadot.
Gadot. Mhm.
Gadot.
I want to say
Okay,
Godot
Gadot.
because in French it would be Godot, but
Right. Well, Gal is
Wonder
awesome.
Woman.
I thought she was great in it. I thought that the actors and actresses were fantastic. Pedro Pascal, the Mandalorian, was the
Oh yeah. Yeah.
primary enemy. I thought he did a great job in that role, and you did not agree, Addie. Well,
That's probably why. That's probably the only reason I'll watch it eventually. It's just to see how he plays a different character.
I thought he did that well. I don't think it was a
Yeah.
very well written character, but I thought he did well with what he was
It
doing.
was a Trump. He was Trump.
He was Trump.
He was Trump. Yeah, I mean, he was. Yeah, he was. But you know, I thought he played it well. Anyway, so I thought it was well acted, but the whole. I mean,
All right.
not a good
Well,
movie.
I'm getting that you weren't crazy about it. So let's talk about things that might be more fun. Because there's like a dozen new Star Wars things coming out.
Oh yeah. Oh, crazy. Yeah.
At the end of the Mandalorian this season, they announced a new
book of Boba Fett.
Yeah,
Boba Fett, Ahsoka, Tano, the new batch, Rogue Squadron, Obi-Wan, something.
Yeah.
There was like 7 or 8 of them. Yeah,
12.
yeah. Cassian Andor.
12 that they've announced.
12? Oh my God, then I haven't even seen the whole list. Shame on me.
Yeah.
We're still trying to get over the Mandalorian finale. No spoilers, but really, we watched it twice in a row and still just couldn't, like, we were blown away. Yeah. It was amazing.
I'm pretty sure, Jim, that there's not going to be the child in the next season, and you're going to have to deal with it.
No, I will not deal with it.
No,
the Mandalorian, not the child.
The next season and every other Star Wars show that comes out, or else I will not watch them.
So that's it. Grogu has ruined Star Wars for you, because unless Grogu is in the show, you're not watching it.
Correct.
That's right.
Okay.
Well,
I'll just give you a cut of every future show, Jim, where there's like cooing noises in the background. And you're like, he's just off screen.
Well, what I was going to say is, if you could get a Grogu like Heather has there, you could just hold it while you're watching these shows, and then Grogu would be with you, even not on the screen, but in your arms, cooing and, putting his hand out to use the Force and things like that. Would that help?
I don't know.
We need to talk. We'll talk to Bottom Cork to get that for you for your birthday, which is Star Wars Day.
May the 4th.
Oh, wonderful! Yeah. Well, they'll probably do a movie trilogy about Grogu, don't you think? I mean, this landed so well with the entire Star Wars fandom, and it's difficult to get that fandom to agree on anything. I think if they don't do a movie trilogy about this particular character, I think they're really missing a huge opportunity.
Yeah, they must have made a huge amount of money off this thing, and they're not dumb. They're gonna bring it.
It landed with everybody.
Speaking of trilogies, there's we've been talking about movies and shows, but there's books I've heard are a thing, and there's a trilogy that's just been completed, I understand, Heather, that's got some planetary science goodness to it.
Oh yes, the Formist series. It's a book trilogy by an author named Matt Williams, and fantastic. The first one, the Cronian Incident, was like a mystery story, and the second one, the Jovian Manifesto, was about our species colonizing worlds of Jupiter and how the cultures there ran up. And they just released the third one. I haven't read it yet. I've gotten through the prologue, and I have to find some dedicated time to really sit down and enjoy the planetary science of it. But this author did some absolutely fantastic research, and it's one of the things that might be of interest to your audience. They're available on Amazon, and he did sort of the inner worlds and the outer worlds culture based on the properties of each planet. And so, like, if you're really interested in planets, but like reading, like dry, hard science books, it's all set with a fictional background, but it's all absolutely real, what those planets are like, what it took to terraform and colonize them, and all the challenges that they face based on the properties of, say, Titan, the moon of Callisto, Mercury, and so forth. And so, I've been enjoying those. I think, people interested in space would love them.
Do the people
do another Pillownaut session if you want to find the time to read that? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We frequently, I don't know if this is the right phrasing, but we've talked about on Titan, because of its low gravity and its dense atmosphere, that if you equipped yourself with the appropriate cardboard wings, you could physically fly on Titan. Does anybody in these books ever go out for a little flap their arms like mad with their parkas and their strapped on wings and go for a fly?
Yes.
Really?
Yes, there is
Okay.
some
Nice.
jetpack flying. Well, I won't spoil it. Not
Okay.
necessarily jetpack the way we think of it in existing fiction, but there's definitely because it's set far in the future. There's a lot of really interesting technology that I found unique among sci-fi authors these days.
It sounds like, in the terms of it's sort of rooted in realism and also with sort of cultural, differences across the solar system. It sounds similar in some ways to The Expanse, which was based on a series of books in which now the latest season is out. And I know
so
Addie and
sorry,
Jim
I
are big
don't.
fans.
I'm so busy with Star Trek and Star Wars series that I have not yet watched The Expanse. I apologize.
So good.
So I can't compare. But if that's
Neither-
the thing, yeah.
Josh
if they
hasn't watched
discuss,
either.
I
yeah, if
haven't
they discuss
watched it either, Heather.
pioneering, then yeah. Oh, you don't watch it either? Oh, okay.
I mean, only just because, for lack of interest, just for sort of haven't managed it yet. But I've seen some episodes, and it's definitely, rooted in reality, and it's rooted in a lot of the things that we talk about in the near future with mining of asteroids, and so they take those things seriously.
Look for a future spin-off podcast in which I talk about The Expanse.
Okay, right.
There you go.
Well, so Heather, let's talk about your own sort of astronaut adventures. You are a self-described Pillownaut.
Pillownaut. Yes. I coined that term. Well, I originally had Pillow Astronaut, which is still the name of my website. I had to shorten it to Pillownaut because at the time that I was going to do these spaceflight simulations for NASA, of course, I was going into quarantine for, potentially months at a time. And my mother thought the government was going to end me. So I decided to put a blog online just to let her know, this is all safe. They explain everything to you. It's totally voluntary. I can leave anytime and all this kind of thing if I am injured in some way. But the blog spot would only allow a certain number of characters. So I had to shorten it to Pillownaut. And now NASA and the European Space Agency use that term for all of their spaceflight simulators.
That's awesome.
As a nickname, yeah.
So how did you become a Pillownaut, and what is a Pillownaut?
A Pillownaut is technically, the term for us is flight analogs. And you go to the FARU, F-A-R-U, which is the Flight Analog Research Unit of Johnson Space Center. The ESA does it somewhere in a facility in France. And Russia has one of these, and China has one of these as well. And they mimic weightlessness on the ground. Sometimes it's done with water immersion. Sometimes it's done for lunar gravity with a specific contraption that keeps you at a tilt that mimics the moon's gravity. The longest one that I did was microgravity, which they put you on a slab minus tilted backward -6 degrees. And one of the few creatures
with your head down,
with your head tilted
a little
down.
bit below.
Yeah, and that facilitates a bunch of physiological changes that astronauts undergo in orbit, which is blood plasma volume changes. Your face gets a little puffy because the blood rushes to your head. The blood valves in your legs start to stop working. Your muscles atrophy. You can suffer bone density demineralization. Everything that happens in orbit.
And how long were you on such a slab? I mean, I hope it wasn't like a concrete slab.
No, no, it's a bed, and the one kind of creature comfort that you can have is a very slender pillow. But that was the Pillow Astronaut kind of thing, because that was one of the few things that you're allowed to have. And because the protocols are very, very strict: no salt, no sugar, no alcohol, no caffeine, no vitamins, no this, no that, no nothing. And yeah,
it sounds like torture.
Well, you adjust to it. It's when you first read the rules, it really you can't even use chapstick. You can't use vitamin E lotion. You can't do anything that might mess with the data that they're taking about your body. And there's a lot of urinalysis. I think I had 55 blood draws in my first protocol, which was 54. Yeah, that was partly screening, partly baseline testing. But then the time that I spent head down was 54 days. And
oh my gosh.
yeah, when you don't use your feet and legs for 54 days and the blood all rushes to your head, and your body adapts. I had a little quote unquote space sickness at the beginning where like my eyes watered and my teeth were kind of throbbing because there's all this blood in your head. But yeah, at the end of the 54 days, when I got up again, my blood pressure just shot through the roof. It felt like someone was shoving knives into my feet. I was in a wheelchair for a couple of days. I fainted a couple of times which a lot of astronauts do when they come home from orbit. I couldn't drive a car. My vestibular system and my depth perception were all just, and my prescription changed. I had to get new glasses.
Permanently?
So my nearsightedness, and that happens to a lot of astronauts too. See, they don't wear glasses before they go to orbit, but they do, their 20/20 vision is gone when they come home, especially after very, very long stints on the space station.
Wow. So 54 days on a bed, head tilted down, a slender pillow. You could watch movies. Were there other people there that you could interact with?
Yeah, I was really lucky. We had, and some of the monitors and scientists there even commented that our particular group that was there was very cohesive. We all grew very close. We still keep in touch on Facebook. We would have movie nights. We would do art projects together. Each of us had these little springs where you could type upward on a laptop over the bed. And we all had little pet fish that we would wheel around and visit each other.
Do they visit other people? Do they have to wheel you around and stuff like that?
Yeah. There's monitors because no matter what, you have to stay head down. If you sit up, they'll throw you out. So you even shower that way. They have a special shower with pointed, things so that you can literally shower lying down. And I got to tell you, trying to wash this kind of hair. I knew that would be impossible. So before I went, I chopped my hair up above my ears just to.
I have questions about other bodily functions during that amount of time, but I'm not going to ask them maybe on here.
Well, that's okay. I get asked that question a lot. They've made fun of me on Fox News, but yeah, it's
congratulations.
Yeah, they were very nice.
Badge of honor.
Yeah, it kind of is. It is the same 4 or 5 minutes total out of your day as it is that it's normal. It's just you just do it in a bedpan, and they help you, and they do your laundry per week, and you get a massage every other day to prevent blood clots. So it's not all awful. Yeah,
and you can turn over, right? You can be face down or face up in the bed.
Yes.
And you can lift your arms up to type on things.
Yes.
But you're not allowed to sit up.
You're not allowed to sit up. They actually encourage you to use your arms because astronauts do. On the space station, you have to pull yourself through the modules so your upper arms, we're allowed to do stretches and things. You can't exercise. And then throughout the protocol, literally sometimes almost every day, there would be vitals checks, blood draws, spit tests. And then they would move you to other rooms to do bone scans, kinetic testing, muscle testing, and that dreaded tilt table and centrifuge stuff where they're literally just, you really does.
Explain the centrifuge.
Huh?
Explain the centrifuge. What do you mean by that?
Explain the centrifuge. Unfortunately, it got destroyed when Hurricane Ike flooded the facility. We actually had to evacuate. That particular protocol got cut short. But it's not like the centrifuge that the astronauts have, the big one at Goddard. It's actually designed for you to lay down on, obviously, because we can't sit up as if we're in a cockpit. And it's just two. They can do 2 people at a time. I only wrote it.
Is it like the Star Trek episode, What Are Little Girls Made Of?
Yeah.
I got a Trekkie person here. I'm going to ask deep dive Trekkie questions because Jim and Annie, they like Star Trek, but the deep dives, they're not.
Not usually.
Oh God, I have yet, I think, to get through any interview on TV or radio without somebody asking me about Star Trek or Star Wars. So.
Good.
That's probably a good thing. Yeah.
Really got to stay on brand.
But has anybody asked you about What Are Little Girls Made Of before?
No one has ever asked me what little girls are made of.
You're
So
welcome.
there you go. There. Yeah, that's good. But no, that one was actually, they don't do that test very often. The most rigorous testing, interestingly, is before you even get in the program. They want to make sure that they're not going to kill you. So you have to cycle to exhaustion, run to exhaustion, all kinds of different blood panels. They have to make sure that you're completely healthy, because you are going to have a little bit of degradation in the program, and so they want to make sure that you start out robustly healthy so that you don't have long-term effects. And like, nobody ever came out and told me, here's the reason you got accepted. And they can't tell you anybody else's for legal reasons.
Yeah.
But talking amongst ourselves, there were things that we thought, well, that's probably not coincidence. None of us had ever had a broken bone in our medical history. None of us had ever had major surgeries. None of us had any chronic conditions. None of us were on any medications. All of us were athletes, marathon runners, soccer players, swimmer. So yeah, I mean, and
you signed up for this madness 3 times.
I signed up for this madness 3 times. Yes, I did.
Okay.
Well, luckily, the second 2 protocols that I did were a lot shorter. I did a lunar study, which was 21 days. Hi, kitty. Oh, look, there's
Rascal's
kitty.
making an appearance in space. It's nice.
Yeah, that's great. And then we did a hypovolemia study for 12 days, and that one was just chemical countermeasures to see how your blood plasma volume reacted to different salinization and other types of techniques.
Well, before I drop the trivia on you all, which is inspired by your adventures as a Pillownaut, Heather.
Oh, cool.
It really does sound like torture. I mean,
This is monumentally impressive. Every morning.
You don't like just late? Come on. When we
For
have breaks, you don't just
54
sit around
days.
for 5
in
days.
bed at night, it's great, and you feel great, and it's like the greatest thing in the world. By morning, my back hurts. I'm like, I can't stay in this bed any longer. I don't know how you would do it for 24 hours, let alone.
You just turn over and then you go back to sleep.
No, it hurts.
No, it actually really is not that easy. The first few days of adaptation, I would say the first week, is very difficult. You know, any normal human being, and I definitely went through this, you lie there and you think, what have I gotten myself into? And a lot of people don't make it. You know, the year that I joined, they had something in excess of 16,000 applications. I was the 18th out of 21 accepted for the whole year. And I think 6 of those did not finish their protocols. So, I mean, they're desperate for good, robustly healthy people, especially women. They have a lot of data on men, not enough on women.
Yeah.
Typical.
Yeah, it is.
Yep.
But so they were really happy to have me, and they were really happy that I kept qualifying each year for as long
Can
as
I teach my class laying down the whole time? Yes, I can.
Yeah, no, I kept working because at the time I had an IT job that I could do remotely. So I was
Nice.
a database administrator at the time, and kind of just filled out the application as a joke because I thought it wasn't real.
Yeah.
I thought it was some kind of put on.
Would
And
you like to
then-
lay in a bed for
Yeah.
NASA?
Yeah, but I got a phone call saying we'd like to, get a blood test locally, and then that cleared, and then they literally flew me to Houston at their cost to start screening, and
Wow.
it was amazing.
Are they still
And-
running this program?
Yes, Well, not during the pandemic. There's a number of protocols that they can't do.
Yeah.
But if you were already in before the quarantine started,
You're still there.
yeah, probably. No, you can go home. But
Turns out.
yeah, there was a smart pill protocol a couple of years ago. They had done a testosterone study. They continually do long-term microgravity ones. There's a 90-day one as well. Mine probably would have been 90 days if Hurricane Ike hadn't chased us out of it. And there's also a new habitat one that's Mars simulation that they're doing in a specific habitat, not necessarily in a hospital. I was in something that sort of resembled a hospital ward.
Yeah. Yeah, they have like the high seas program and things like
Yes.
that in Hawaii, where it's the long duration sort of Mars
Yes.
simulation. They do like communications delays and you're
Yes.
working remotely and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are cool.
Well, thank you for your service as
Oh,
a
you're welcome.
as a Pillownaut. So, Heather, you furthered our understanding of long-term living in a reduced gravity environment by these amazing feat of endurance and testing, and for 2 months. Our trivia today concerns the feat of pushing the body to its limits in the other direction. What is the longest documented period of time, and don't blurt out your answer if you know, what is the longest documented period of time anyone has gone continuously without sleeping?
Oh, I was reading about this recently, and by recently I mean within the last year.
Yeah. So think about that. The longest period of time somebody's gone without sleeping. And I just, for you, I think that you weren't allowed to like just sleep forever, right? They had you on a pretty strict sleep
No.
schedule.
Yeah, no, we couldn't nap during the day. They'd wake you up. You're up at 6, you're lights out at 10. It's very strict.
Yeah. Yeah.
And no napping.
Okay.
How much sleep?
Well, think about that. We'll come back for our answers after our next 2 science topics. First up is related actually to our sponsor, Moment of Inertia, which in addition to sponsoring the show and being a peaceful sense of equilibrium, rotational equilibrium with their environment, is a property of objects that determines how easy it is to change their state of rotation. And the Earth, as we know, is spinning around merrily along its axis every 24 hours. It's not really 24 hours,
Ish.
23 hours, 56 minutes and whatever. So depending on how you count the, your day, if it's a sidereal day or a solar day, it's 86,400 seconds and plus or minus a tiny little bit. And over time, over very long periods of time, the day is getting longer, right? Because tidal interactions between the Earth and the Moon are causing the Moon to move away from the Earth, which increases the Moon's angular momentum. And as a result, the Earth's angular momentum decreases and it slows down a little bit. So I like to imagine that at some point, I can't remember how many tens or hundreds of millions of years in the future, we will finally have that extra hour in the day, so we can don't need to worry about, every single day will be like the daylight savings time, fall back.
Yeah, except it's one of those
awesome.
things where like it's going to be happening so slowly. We'll just figure out how to fill up that time.
But if you could time travel, that'd be the time to go to.
Yeah, that's true.
At some point, it'll be 25 hours. But in any event, it's on generally slowing down a little bit, like a second every couple of years, at least in the modern, last century or so. And they've actually, that's not really true. I misstated that.
Less than that, yeah.
It's much, much less than that. But what's
That's
happening
how much
is
I'm slowing down.
the accumulated error between over the course of a year between the what the clock should be and what it is adds up to about a second every year or two, which is a very different thing than the actual time slowing down by a second every year. In any event, recently, it's been going the other way.
What?
We're spinning the other way?
The days have been just, instead of the days being a smidge longer, they're a smidge shorter.
Yeah, this is a little bit weird, right? Because when you teach this, or when like you said, the first order thing you think of is the tidal friction that slows us down. So we have to think of the days of getting longer. I guess they're getting shorter. Why, Josh?
It's moment of inertia.
Heather, why?
I think moment of inertia.
Think moment of inertia. I don't know.
I think the Earth's moment of inertia has gotten a little bit smaller.
Is it because the Earth is warmer?
Well, I don't know the answer. I was actually asking. So, I mean, it does have something to do with moment of inertia, right? Obviously. So what is, there are a lot of things that can affect the Earth's moment of inertia. Things like air pressure, changes in overall air pressure, and slight changes in what the core of the Earth is doing, right? We know that the core of the Earth is this very complicated system, and we know that because the magnetic field is changing in strange ways.
And because we've seen the core.
Because we've seen the movie The Core.
Tells us a lot of information.
Oh God, that's an awful film. Yeah.
Yeah, that's terrible. That's worse than Wonder Woman 84.
Yeah.
Oh, we
Um,
watched a movie called Greenland that's about a
Oh,
natural
is that out
disaster
already?
recently.
Oh yeah,
It's out in some platforms.
Is
yeah.
that Gerard Butler? Yeah,
Yeah.
I saw a little ad for that. Yeah.
Is it as
I
good
thought
as
that
Deep
might be
Impact?
worth watching.
It is not as good as Deep Impact, but it's not as bad as I expected.
Okay.
so better
And
than
you're
the
not
core.
just saying that to suck up to me?
I'm not.
Okay.
But in any event, um,
Sorry.
So I
something
just
is
want to, Jim, I
causing
want you
a-
to, Jim, before you go on, I want you to elaborate a little bit on how air pressure could change the moment of inertia of the Earth.
well, I mean, so if air pressure, so the atmosphere is stuck to the surface of the Earth. If it puffs out a little bit, then that means the Earth's mass is a little bit more widely distributed. If it sucks down a little bit, then it's more tightly distributed. And even though the mass of the atmosphere is tiny compared to the mass of the Earth, these changes are tiny, right?
Right.
We're not talking about big things.
And so just, just for everybody to know what we're talking about, the moment of inertia is, think of the classic example of the spinning ice skater. And when the arms are held wide, you spin slowly, and when they're
You draw
held
in,
in
it
tight, you
goes
spin
faster.
quickly. So if
Yeah.
the Earth is spinning a little bit faster, it says the moment of inertia is a little bit smaller. The distribution of
Pulled
mass
in
is
her fingers just a tiny little
Just a tiny
bit.
little bit,
Yeah.
right? And that,
So yeah, so like for the atmosphere, one thing that causes the upper atmosphere to expand is things like related to solar activity. But we're heading
Yeah.
towards solar max now, where increased solar activity, which is puffing up the very outer layers, that's not very much mass. That's a tiny, tiny fraction of the mass of the atmosphere, which again is a tiny fraction of the overall. So maybe things going on in the core, redistributions of matter.
Is there any studies of like the correlation between solar activity and our
Probably not.
I want to see some fun correlation plots for this stuff that's like
Yeah.
things that are not actually correlated, but we
Right.
can show
Right.
that they
well,
are.
yeah, I think what was frustrating for us reading that article was that, so there's this article describing how in 2020, we had something like, I don't know, what was it, 20 of the fastest days of the last 50 years were all in 2020.
Even though it seemed like time was slowing
Stopped.
down, it was actually going faster.
We had really quick days, fractions of
yeah.
a millisecond quicker than other days.
That's why I was less
There wasn't a
productive.
good explanation of why that is. I think somebody has good ideas about why, but not the authors of this general science papers that we read.
Well, the results of all of this
Or on
are
the
tracked
website.
by a group in France, which tracks the orientation of the Earth, meaning the orientation of the spin axis of the Earth. So which way is the North Pole, the rotation axis, really pointing in space? So that's not constant either, and that's due to all sorts of complicated forces acting on the Earth from other planets. Gravitational pulls and everything is not exactly planar, and the Earth is not a perfect sphere. So there's these little wobbles there. So they track that, and they also track the length of the day. And I just wanted to mention it because the name of this place is the Earth Orientation Center, which I just think is awesome.
Center.
That's a good
Okay,
name.
so they take the oblate spheroid and the rotational axis and the speed, and they've determined.
Oh, it's way, way beyond the oblate spheroid. So the measure of the shape of the Earth goes out thousands of terms.
Okay.
Like an oblate spheroid, a sphere is one term. The oblate spheroid is two. We're out in the thousands.
And now they're out in
terms.
doing all the heavy math to get an exact shape that we don't even have a name for. Okay.
And measuring, precise astronomical measurements of all of these, all of these things. So,
nerds.
Probably
part of the problem with that is like all of the stuff that might be affecting it, like you mentioned the core, like we just don't actually understand a lot of that stuff very well. So
right.
we can track it, but maybe we don't know the answer.
Right. But this is part of the way that you study that kind of thing, is by getting a careful understanding of the shape of the Earth, and the pointing of the poles tells you about what's happening on the inside of the Earth.
That's right.
Helps us learn. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really interesting. I mentioned the second incorrectly initially, but every couple of years, typically we get a leap second where we make up for these little errors that accumulate over time due to little changes in the speed of the rotation of the Earth. And if this trend continued for some period of time, I don't know how long, but probably longer than it probably needs to go longer than it will, we would potentially maybe have a negative leap second. But according to what we read about the Earth Orientation Center, they're thinking about sort of dropping the whole leap second idea and maybe, figuring other ways to handle those discrepancies
All
or
is
just
dropping
ignoring
in
it.
Times Square and you just skip 7.
Yeah,
That's right.
Fundamentally,
That's right.
The reason why you have leap seconds and why this is important is just that, it's not, how many seconds did you say were in a day, Josh? You said
86,400.
86,400. Well, there isn't 86,400 exactly, right? And the time that you keep on atomic clocks is then not going to be linked exactly to the time you keep based on how fast the Earth is spinning. If you want to keep those, you don't have to keep those things synced, but if you want to keep those things synced, then you have to have leap seconds every now and again, or maybe a leap hour every much longer period of time or something like that. But maybe these adding a leap seconds every few years is dumb, and we'll stop doing that.
Well, they're definitely, we used them in astronomy. I mean, in astronomy, you have to keep track of the leap seconds. And like for our Cassini observations, every time there's a leap second, I had to go back in and enter that data into our software.
So even if we don't officially do the leap seconds, astronomers are going to have to still be very careful about that. They're going to have to know the difference between the atomic clock time and the time based on the spin of the Earth.
Yeah, but astronomers and other people use all sorts of weird clocks anyway, so we can figure it out.
Yeah, they're smart. They'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
Something like that.
Before I get your guesses on the sleep deprivation trivia, there was another note about our nearest stellar neighbor to the sun, Proxima Centauri, which has a couple of planets, one of which is notably, at least nominally, in the habitable zone, or as Jim would say, habitable.
I would say
habitable.
Right, would I not?
Something like that. Zone of the star. But they've been looking at new ways to sort of measure the activity of that star, and it's not so nice.
It's a pretty active star, right? So so the Proxima Centauri is it's a cooler star than the sun. It's called a red dwarf. And so the planets are actually and we've discovered, I think, 2 planets, right? B and C around Proxima Centauri. And so it's like habitable zone, you mentioned, is closer in, and we've discovered 2 planets around Proxima Centauri. And so we're really curious for these planets and for other planets, like what's the space weather like there? And that's based on how active the stars are. So one way to look at this is with radio waves. So there was a new paper that came out that looked at different types of radio noise, radio bursts, for looking at signatures for activity from these stars. So the sun, we've talked about this sometimes, as coronal mass ejections, or CMEs, where you have a bunch of material being burst out from the sun, and that's really bad for us here on Earth, because it's usually a lot of high energy particles and things like that. And back in the day, it was really bad. It could disrupt sort of some technology on Earth, but now with all of our stuff electronic and space-based, it's going to be really bad if we get a really bad event in the future. So there's all sorts of interesting studies of that here, but these astronomers are using it to study signatures of CMEs around other stars and other planets, and they actually detected a big flare in optical wavelengths, so looking at optical wavelengths, and then also this big longer duration radio burst, which seemed to correlate to what we see here in our system. And here we see them once every few years, these really big ones, maybe every decade or so, but they were seeing them every few weeks around Proxima Centauri. So not a great place to live.
So
probably not a good place for one of the books that you were talking about earlier.
Right, because not only are the flares more frequent, because the star is cooler than the sun, the Goldilocks zone is closer to the star. You have to be closer to that dim fire to be warm enough for life, for liquid water at least. And so you're in close to a star, and the star is much more violently active.
So this is going to be way worse than just screwing up their satellites and power grids. This is going to, those are the kind of things that can strip away the atmosphere.
Right.
And irradiate the surface. Since bad news for developing life.
They would have bigger things than leap seconds to worry about in that case.
For sure.
They would.
Okay, so our trivia. What is the longest period of time
Oh yeah,
that somebody has gone without sleeping? And I'll tell you
it's
in
more than a leap
advance,
second.
I'll tell you in advance that there's some conflicting information out there because it's hard to really document it because it's really easy to, like, some people actually even fall asleep for brief periods of time with their eyes open.
Yeah,
And so,
I fell asleep standing a few times.
well, what do you think?
Dangerous.
I
Jim,
would
we'll
think
start.
this.
Go
Oh,
ahead,
sorry. Go
Heather.
ahead. I was gonna say I don't know like who it is specifically. Addie might have an advantage if she just read something about it, but I would conjecture that this record is fairly old because I know that a few years ago Guinness stopped accepting records for things like eating and sleeping and drinking water and in terms of amount because people were like really hurting themselves trying to do stuff
Oh,
like
yeah,
this.
that makes
That's
sense.
exactly right.
So it seems to me like this record would probably be in like the 80s or before.
You are correct that you're correct on all counts, although it's worth pointing out that just because Guinness stops doing it won't stop
Oh yeah, no, I'm
self-destructive
sure.
people from trying.
Yeah,
Now there's TikTok.
people
so-
haven't stopped doing it, but you might
Right.
not see it in the news because Guinness
Right.
won't humor them.
Right.
What's your guess, Heather?
I would probably guess maybe 7 or 8 days. I mean, you'd go nuts after that, and I'm sure it was probably a man who tried it.
It was a man.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, you're saying 7 or 8. Which one?
Okay, 8 days.
It is.
Mhm.
Okay.
All right.
I'll go 12 days.
Wow,
Ooh.
that's a long time.
That's great. Yeah, I mean,
Wouldn't that kill you?
I couldn't make it more than a day and a half, but yeah, I'm gonna go with 12.
Addie?
Yeah, I think it's something sort of on that. I want to say like 5 days, but I think it's higher than that.
Okay, well, if we went with Price is Right rules, Heather would get it. And if we just go by being
It's 11,
close,
right?
it's 11 days.
Yeah.
11
I should have said
days.
11 as my answer. I did say 11 as my answer before you
Wow.
said the answer, but
That's
And-
crazy.
And get this, it was a 17-year-old.
yeah.
So, and when it was supervised, this was in 1964, Randy Gardner,
Oh wow.
an American from San Diego, in December, and started in December of 1963 and finished in January of 1964. 11 days and 25 minutes. And it was supervised by a doctor or a researcher from a university. And it's just like, the thing that struck me about it is like, how do you let
A
a
17-year-old.
17-year-old
Yeah.
do something that is
They certainly
that should
wouldn't
have
allow that today.
clearly
That's
been so
crazy.
dangerous? And Addie, you may have been hearing the same thing about this story that I had recently, which is on NPR. This person is still with us and now has terrible insomnia.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, maybe
And-
that's
Even
what made
from
me read
something
about it.
he did as a teenager, has he had sleep problems because of this issue or?
I mean, I don't know. But immediately afterwards, he seemed to resume a normal sleep pattern. During the time that he was awake, there were some mood changes and things
Sure.
like that. But at the
Yeah.
same time, he was alert, and he, was beating people in ping pong on the day 10 and things like that.
Oh wow.
But it's obviously not good for you.
No.
Yeah.
The
God.
reason I said that there are
They
some,
use that as a torture method in places like
It is,
Absolutely.
yeah. Sleep deprivation with noise is absolutely, and it
Oh yeah.
even just pulling all-nighters in college. I don't think I ever passed like even the 60-hour mark without
Yeah.
severe consequences. Where then, like once you get wired up for a little while, and then once you do crash, you sleep for like 3 days.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, here's another random bit of sleep trivia from completely unverified from the National Sleep Research Project in Australia. If it takes you less than 5 minutes to fall asleep at night, you're sleep deprived.
What?
Yep. I've
I
read
don't
that,
know if-
and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
100%
So
true.
You think you concur with that?
I do.
A new baby typically results in 400 to 750 hours of lost sleep for its parents in the first year.
Oh
Oh
no.
God.
Oh no.
Anyway, get a good night's sleep, everybody. But then I would say after a good night's sleep, go ahead and get out of bed, unless
Yeah.
you're a Pillownaut and you have
Yeah.
to stay stuck in bed all of that time.
Don't lie there. You'll pay for it with muscle atrophy. Absolutely.
Yeah, but you've recuperated,
Yes,
right?
I have no
Yeah,
long-term effects.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
I was
great.
this is actually one thing that I should mention for people that might want to join this program later if you're in good enough shape. There is physical rehabilitation at the end. They don't just
Oh,
like
good.
shove you out the door to
Oh, good.
go home. You
They'll
know?
like
Good.
dump you off the bed and say good luck.
Yeah,
There may
because
be
you can't. Yeah, you can't drive. I couldn't, like, my brother stayed with me for a little while, even after I got home after physical therapy, because, you know, you can't stand up long enough to cook. But I was
amazing.
very, very dedicated exerciser, and I was back up to running my normal 5 miles within about a month. So,
Okay.
Good, good to hear. Well, while it may have felt like lying in bed for 2 months, it was just another episode of Walkabout the Galaxy. Write us a review in your dreams and tell your therapist about it. Thank you again to Heather Archuletta, the original Pillownaut, for joining us today. You can follow Heather on Instagram, Facebook, pillownaut.blogspot.com, and Twitter @Pillownaut. Be sure to follow your friendly neighborhood astroquarks on Facebook and Instagram, and check out our website at walkaboutthegalaxy.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Walkabout the Galaxy, where you can see most of our episodes, some of our bloopers, and all of our music videos. Catch up on old episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Twitter
At walk_the_galaxy.
and ask us questions anywhere using hashtag AskWTG. Our theme music was composed by Richard Drusik. Thanks to our listeners in Washington, D.C. and around the world. Stay safe. I'm Josh Caldwell.
I'm Addie Dove.
And I'm Jim Cooney.
Thanks again, Heather. And we're the Astroquarks signing off until the next episode of Walkabout the Galaxy.
bye.